Charity. Oh, hey, Charity. Charity is joining us. Good morning, Charity.
Hi, how is everybody?
Great. Good to have you with us. This is fantastic. So,
Yes, it's been a while. I apologize, but I had some time this morning, so I'm happy to be here.
Charity, the door is always open, or the line is always open, or what do we say there, David? The link is always available, something like that.
Yeah, we need something catchy though, don't we?
Something
That doesn't
catchy
have
like
the
that.
ring to it. Like the
Yeah,
door is always open.
yeah. So
Need a Zoom
maybe
equivalent.
there'll be some creative folks we could find that could help us to like figure that out. So,
Yeah,
would
you
you
know a
know? Would you
few,
know of
right?
any? Do you? Okay, so.
Think we have a speaker that might be able to help us.
So let's begin. As I was getting ready for the meeting this morning, I was just reflecting on how absolutely fortunate and blessed I am to be able to come here and work with you folks this morning. It's just an honor to be with you all, and I was just so delighted about where we're going. So thank you for the contribution you make to medicine, to the world, to making the world better. And as the genesis of the Buffalo Society for Creativity and Medical Education, we had to have a long title, okay? And we do have a logo there. We have a logo. It was with Robert and Dan and Archana and I, and sometimes our good friend Ken Snyder, sitting around a coffee shop, kind of talking about, just kind of the whole state of creativity in medicine and education. And then that moved to my dining room table. And then we went online, and when we got online, we were able to make this a lot more inclusive and a lot more available to people around the country and around the world. We have had folks from India on this. So we're going to continue to do this, but just once again, thank you so much for your participation. It's just an honor to have you here. I want to also mention, so thank you. So from that thought to the next thought, I want to mention to you that next Thursday, you might want to write this down, and David will send you information on this. The Center for Applied Imagination at Buffalo State University will be conducting the Creativity Expert Exchange. And this is an exchange where we bring together folks virtually to talk about what's going on in the field of creativity. And so we have folks not only from a practice side, from a research side as well. It's free. David will send you the link. You just have to register for it. And so it's something that's available to you. We will have recordings of it available, but just go ahead and get registered if you'd like. And it'll be Thursday and Friday. And you can drop in as you like. But we were doing the planning of it yesterday. And so please just avail yourself of that. It's another opportunity to get started. So to get moving in there. So let's just go around really quick and just say who you are. And then we'll begin with Aldad to tell us a little bit about the AI infused platform, continuing on from what he did last week. So off to my left is Capsule Commander Dr. David Yates, who runs all of this stuff. So thank you, David. And so let's see, Kathleen, just want to say a quick hello there.
Dover Den.
There we go. Ike, good morning. Welcome.
Thank you.
Good to have us. Ike, where are you coming in from?
Oh, I am, you mean the originally?
No, wherever you want. Pick what you like.
I originally from South Korea, but
Okay.
came to the Penn State for my PhD
Okay.
and worked at University of Georgia as an education faculty, 21 years. Last semester, I moved to the Emory School of Nursing as Assistant Dean of Education System Science.
Thank you for being here. Thank you. I'll bring you in last. Dan Sheehan.
Good morning. I'm Dan Shin, a pediatric lung doc, and I work with the medical curriculum at UB.
Thanks, Dan. Kelly.
Hi, I'm Kelly. I work in education at the University of Rochester in our quality improvement department.
Wonderful. Armin.
Good morning, Armin St. George from HIA, VP of Business Development, and glad to be joining this group. It's been exciting since we started last month.
And we're going to keep it going, Armin. Richard.
Hey, Rich Lamb from the University of Georgia. Work in translational education with the College of Pharmacy and College of Veterinary Medicine.
Wonderful, Richard. Thank you. Robert.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm a semi-retired cardiologist.
Right.
I'm doing some part-time teaching at the UB Medical School, which I really love. And I've become very passionate about the prospects of AI improving medicine. So that's why I'm here. I'm really excited about this morning's talk. And lastly, I'll say you can. I'm sometimes referred to as Cato. I'm Roger's sort of right-hand man.
You guys remember the Green Hornet and Cato? So yeah, so Cato is like a cardiologist. Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
You're highly overqualified, Robert.
Or the Pink Panther.
Michael, good morning. Great to see you again.
Good morning. If I remember correctly, Cato was played by Bruce Lee, wasn't
That's
he?
correct. That's correct.
Yeah,
Yes.
older than I look. Hi, I'm Michael Leonard. I'm a pediatric inpatient physician from the University of Rochester, originally from UB. I'm also the chief safety officer for our medical center.
Michael, great to see you. Charity, welcome back to the show.
Yes. Hi, everybody. I'm Charity Bergio. I'm the manager of learning and performance at Kaleida Health. So we work with our clinical folks on non-clinical skills. So this is a great group to hear from all of you and learn some more.
Great, Sherry. Thank you. Raj.
Hi, I am Raj Thapar. I'm a PGY3 internal medicine at UBCHS, and I have a background in software engineering, and I'm glad to be here. Thanks.
Great. Welcome, Raj. And Sharon. Okay, I guess we're going to just have Sharon's iPhone here with us. Robert, over to you. Yes?
Yes. John Kraus, our third-year student, texted me this morning that he was not going to be able to make it because he has a required class, but he's looking forward to the recording, Dave.
Thank you. Thank you.
He's letting his education get in the, oh.
And Dr. Geraci is also not able to join us this morning. He's skiing with his grandchildren in Ellicottville, so that's just fine. So Alden was with us last week and last time we were together, and thank you, Doctor. It's just so wonderful to have you with us to talk about more information about the AI-infused platform to turn passive instructive videos into interactive experiences. And his title today is Leverage Digital Solutions to Transform Healthcare Education and Delivery. There was also a document that explains Quivo, am I saying that right? And so Alden, over to you, please. And thank you once again for being here so early in California morning. So honored to have you with us.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that introduction. Thank you for inviting me back to your dining room table.
Yeah, that's a great image. I love that. Yes.
Well, first time I've ever been invited back anywhere. So that
I know.
Tell you something, but I really appreciate it.
I don't do that.
Anyway, it's a true pleasure to be talking to you all this morning. So without much delay, I want to share my screen here with you.
Thank you.
And can you guys see my screen?
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
So the title of the talk is actually a little bit different.
Okay.
Let's go full screen. It's really inspired by Daniel Kahneman's book, Thinking Fast and Slow. And the reason I did that is because there are some parallels between how generative AI is developing these days and what Daniel Kahneman described in his book, Thinking Fast and Slow. So the title is Thinking Fast and Slow, Generative AI and Controlled AI, a new paradigm shift on artificial intelligence. If you may not know, Daniel Kahneman is a Nobel Prize-winning economic professor. He wrote this book back in 2002 and really started integrating psychological research into economic science. It's a fascinating view of the human psychology and the inner workings of our brain and how we make decisions. And he draws this dichotomy between what's called intuitive thinking, he calls that system 1, versus deliberate thinking, which he calls system 2. And it's interesting because when you're looking at the development of AI systems, this is kind of the direction that it's going. And I'm going to share some slides with you and then show you how at the application level, at the practical level, at the scalable level, these concepts apply to some of the solutions that we've been working on. So generative AI is the system one. It's fast, it's intuitive. It operates pretty much automatically. Its response is dependent on what is called a heuristic. If you haven't heard that term, we're going to dig into that a little bit. But it's basically the intuitive part of your brain that is able to quickly make a decision and give an output. And it's pretty good. It gets it right most of the time, but it has some flaws. And the main one is that it's prone to bias. Now, I've mentioned heuristic. Heuristic is really a mental task, an ability to create shortcuts for complex things that are in front of us. And it enables us to do faster decision-making and increases our efficiency. Now, you may think, why does our brain need this kind of a system? And the reason is that as animals in nature, we're really meek. We're not very strong. And, we're always having to make quick judgments in relationship to our environments, whether it's a bear that's going to eat us, or it's a mountain lion, or wildfire coming at us. We have to make quick decisions immediately. And that heuristic decision-making ability allows us to get through a complex maze of problems by doing these mental shortcuts. And physiologically, it also minimizes the requirements as well. As you know, the brain runs on glucose, and we don't like to use our brain too much if we don't have to. So we pretty much most of the time run on this system one, fast-paced heuristic pattern recognition system. Very similar to generative AI, it creates these outputs that are very quick, very intuitive, and they tend to be kind of correct most of the time, but not all the time. Another similarity is that our heuristic abilities can recognize patterns from one scenario and apply to another. That speaks to the multimodal nature of these AI systems being developed, where you can do text to speech, text to image, and then that translates over to even other components of communication. So it acts as a rule of thumb, which really, if you think about it, that's how these models are structured. They're condensed rules of thumb that are placed into these models with certain alignment and certain averages that are put in there to give you an output. So those are some of the parallels of having a heuristic decision making and generative AI. So it's fast, it's efficient, it reduces cognitive load, it's flexible, and it winds up being practical. But its Achilles heel is that it is prone to bias and errors. And we've all heard about these AI systems hallucinating or having inherent bias, needing to get fine-tuned again. I would challenge people to even think that we can get bias out of these systems. I think bias is inherent in everything that we do. We can minimize it, but we can never eliminate it. So the main thing about the bias is to be aware of it, to know that it's there, and to be able to address it when it gets in front of our decision making, as opposed to thinking that we can actually eliminate bias out of our vocabulary, out of our language, out of our everyday interactions. So there is a trade-off there with this inherent bias. Also, we tend to over-rely on these systems a little bit too much, and I'll get into that a little bit at the end. But one of the biggest concerns that I would have, and I have, is not that robots are going to take our jobs, but robots are going to take our minds. They're actually going to be governing the way we're thinking if we're not careful about having agency, authority over our content and over our processes. The other really downside of these systems is that they're limited in context, just like humans, right? I mean, we can't take too much information at once. We get overloaded. And I'm sure most people who've been on some of these generative systems, when you give it a large data set, it just says cannot analyze, error messages given to you. So just like these systems, we do have a limited context of information that we can focus in on. And if there's too much information, we get overwhelmed. Just a word about bias. As you know, there's different types of biases. These are just some of the ones, but this photo really represents the concept. So we're walking down this path through this maze using our heuristic part of our brain. Everything's fine, but there may be a gaping hole in front of us that we never see. And that's the bias that we can fall into. Generative AI is the same way. We may be looking at it going, oh, this is all looks great. This output I gave it looks fantastic. I'm so happy with what was produced there, but it may be biased, it may be wrong, and we have to pause and make sure we don't fall in the hole. So what is the solution? One solution really that's been proposed is a controlled AI system. And this is similar to System 2 in Kahneman's description, where it's a slow, deliberate thinking system. This is when you sit there and become analytical, look at the facts, look at outputs, and really analyze it. It is the fact-checking verification of the whole process before we actually have an output or deliver a content. This obviously requires mental effort. It requires more glucose. It requires us to really sit there and think transparently and be more analytical and controlled. And in AI systems, this is considered to be more of a rule-based system, a layer that is placed on the generative, just like System 2 is sitting on top of System 1 in our brain, that allows for controlled interactions, controlled outputs, and it provides safety and guardrails around those types of interactions. So this is how we've been thinking about these models. You have verified content, right? This content can be from any source. It could be generated through generative AI. It could be generated through videos, PowerPoints, PDF, text, URL links. Then you feed it into this closed system that has an endpoint. So it's finite in its ability to create outputs. It doesn't go rogue. It doesn't hallucinate. It doesn't go beyond what was fed into it. And those guardrails allow us to filter or to create rules that control the output, which winds up being a controlled interactive output. So there are a variety of ways how this can work. This is how one of the easier ways of explaining how we've implemented it. But within even our tooling, there are these guardrails that prevent certain things from happening, because we've put some boundaries around the generative systems that are deployed. So integrating generative AI with controlled AI, this hybrid system is really one way of approaching this. Everyone's talking about fine-tuning models. There is no end to fine-tuning. And the reason is that at some point, someone's preference is going to change about that model alignment, and it's going to require more fine-tuning. So continual upkeep of fine-tuning is one way which to solve the problem, but it never guarantees that you're not stepping beyond those bounds. So this hybrid approach, there's several ways of doing this. One is when the layered approach, when the controlled AI system supervises the generative AI system. We call that authored controlled AI. You can have dynamic switching between two systems. So you can have controlled rule-based outputs and generative outputs. Now we call that user-controlled AI, essentially turn on the language model within the system. Human in the loop is another way where humans are actually looking at the decisions being made in order to improve the outputs and the decision-making process. And in our system, that's called AIM. And also feedback mechanisms where the generative feeds back into the control system to allow you to improve the overall system. And finally, cross-validation of inputs and outputs, such as semantic similarities, where you're looking at inputs and trying to figure out if the intended output still matches those intended inputs. That may be getting a little bit into the weeds, but the point is that there are a variety of ways to create a hybrid marriage between the two systems in order to allow a controlled output that does not hallucinate and is within your content delivery parameters, still maintaining your authority and agency over the content. So really, this slide represents what I've been trying to convey this morning, is that we do need a controlled system to help us from falling into these biased or slanted pitfalls in our path to getting a decision or getting an output from any kind of a system. So I'm going to just pause here for a second, see if there are any questions, and if there and then field those, and then show you a demo of how these kinds of systems have been integrated into our solution for interactive multimedia visual educational tools.
Oh, there's no questions here, but I'm seeing some fascinating parallels here. From system one thinking, I think I sent you the book, Solve the Real Problem.
Yes, yes, thank you.
Yeah, and we talk about the first instinct fallacy and the first problem fallacy.
Yes.
First instinct fallacy is what we think is first thing is the answer is the answer. First problem fallacy is what we first think is the problem is the problem. I think that's a wonderful example of system one thinking. And then the whole creative problem solving process that we're all pretty much versed in, that's a wonderful example of system two thinking because it gives you guidelines, it gives you guardrails, it gives you the ability to create within a parameter. So I'm seeing some wonderful parallels here. So very exciting.
Yeah, so you're absolutely right, and but one of the things I wanted to do is really to show how we can, and this speaks to Dr. Yates's lecture back in November, where he created a lesson plan using generative tools. I want to show you how a lesson plan can be turned into an IVO. For those who weren't here in the last meeting, an IVO is one of our solutions, which is essentially a PowerPoint presenter. You have a virtual character if you choose to present the data. The character is not hyper realistic for a reason, because we wanted to have something that is visually pleasing, that's animated, but also can have functionality not only in 2D but in 3D, virtual reality and augmented reality. And it kind of lubricates the conversation. So on the PowerPoint screen, you can show slides, videos, links, and you have your standard play buttons, and you can also ask questions from the content or the speaker here. So this is one of our solutions. I'll show you how we incorporated the lesson plan that was given by Dr. Yates back in November into an IVO. And the second solution is a QVO. And this is basically an interactive video platform where you can upload your videos and then ask questions relative to the content and additional content that you provide for it. So, for instance, for Dr. Yates's lecture, the video that was the recording of the presentation was used to be the basis for this interactive content. On top of that, I also use the lesson plan to add more interactivity to it. So the documents that are feeding that are the video and those Google Doc documents that he had shared with us. So this was part of the lesson plan, and if you can see my screen, this was part of the lesson plan that fed the video, and the video was actually this video that was recorded on the same Zoom meeting. So what we're able to do is upload this video. And as the video is uploaded, it goes through the transcript, goes through a lot of different components of it, and starts indexing that using AI tools. So it does facial recognition, object detection. It defines keywords within that topic. For instance, the named entities in that topic, 68 named entities. It can go exactly to the point that you want within that content based on your preference. So if you want to know where, they're talking about that particular, or let's see here, when they talk about Android, it goes straight to that part of the content. So it allows you to do quick search queries, but also it adds this interactivity layer. Now, these are the question and answers that have been uploaded in order to create the interactive layer. The answers can be static images, or they can be also videos, or they can also have links with it. And when you are in the viewer, you can run
left or 6 out there, right?
Run the content. And at any point, you can stop and ask a question. Now, you have some pre-selected questions here, to give you kind of a little bit of a mental nudge to say, hey, are these what you're thinking about? And this is going to get organized and look differently in about a week. As a matter of fact, it's going to group some questions that kind of relate to each other. So if you're asking about BARD, it presents more BARD questions. So there will be some organization in the background. But this control layer allows you to actually ask questions and get the output that the author wants you to have. So let's just pick a question here. For instance, what formats do Google and ChatGPT use to present their outputs?
Google provides links to websites, news articles, images, videos, and more, often with short snippets. ChatGPT produces text responses without direct links or website content.
Now, we couldn't get the entire crew back to, or Dr. Yates back to give us the prompt, so we decided to use a hyper-realistic synthetic media component to make this visually appealing. All of this obviously was curated and checked before the output was published, but you can have a very visually pleasing output if you choose to have that. So maybe we should just ask a question and see, based on Dr. Yates's lecture, if it gets, what kind of an output we get. So Dr. Yates, would you like to suggest a question? From your
Oh
lecture?
goodness, let's see.
I know there was a movie in there.
Yeah, the movie was Fantastic Voyage.
Right. So what movie was
okay.
in the lecture?
And there it is.
4 men and a beautiful girl, off on a fantastic voyage, actually entering inside the human body.
You have your chat history as well. And then another question would be, because there was a lesson plan in there, right? So I'm going to say, what lesson plan?
I'm not sure about that, but perhaps one of these questions might help.
Now, the reason this is important, because I just kind of threw what lesson plan. That's a lazy system, one way of just saying what lesson plan, right? It's not very specific, but it falls back and it gives me some very interesting things that relate to lesson plans. Like, do you have an interactive lesson plan that ChatGPT generated? Or what link do you have for the lesson plan in this video? Again, the lesson plan is my intent, but this gets me to focus in on exactly what the user wants to ask the system. Very critical, because it's not generating any output based on this input. It's just pausing with a 90% confidence interval and saying, what do you mean by lesson plan? And this, if I pick this, since I know this is going to give me to the video lesson plan, which is uploaded, but I'm going to choose this because I'm more interested in the ChatGPT generated lesson plan that Dr. Yates had talked about.
Certainly, here's the prompt used to create the text version of the lesson plan, and then an example of a lesson plan turned into an IVO. Just click this link and make sure you take the quiz at the end.
So the prompt gave me the lesson plan that Dr. Yates had talked about for everybody to perform. This was the prompt that was used. And then what I did was I took that prompt and turned it into a PowerPoint. Sorry, let me go over here. Can you guys see my screen?
We can.
Yes.
Yeah. So I basically fed that into GPT and I said, give me a 10-slide lesson plan that describes the journey, give me some images. It gave me some images of blood vessels and, one of the issues, you can't edit these. So I, picked what it kind of conveyed the thought that, talking about traveling through the blood vessel as the COVID-19 vaccine, seeing white and red blood cells, and then on and on about the immune system. So that PowerPoint was then fed into our IVO system, which generated the interactive lesson plan. And let me show you what that looks like. So, sorry, wrong page. So that was fed into our Haya Studio, our PowerPoint presenter, the lesson plan that was generated through GPT. And you can see that the character there the system has ingested the entire PowerPoint. The written words which were in the PowerPoint are now the spoken words of the character, and the image is uploaded to represent that. So I'm just going to hit play here, and
here is today's lesson plan on the immune system. Embarking on a journey akin to the imaginative expedition of the 1966 Isaac Asimov's Fantastic Voyage.
Now, she misspelled Isaac Asimov's name incorrectly, And I can correct that through our pronunciation tool, where I can change the pronunciation and make it sound just the way I want. I can also, again, this is a control layer on this, right? Because the AI is generating this output and it's just not saying it right. So I put one of these guardrails, rule-based guardrails on there, and I can go ahead and change that. I can also add pauses if she is going too fast. There's a pause that I want within the content. I can add any pause triggered on any word as well. Again, another control layer on top of content that was generated by AI. In addition, I can add animations, media, have them trigger at any point, and then have her interact with the screen based on the animations. Now, if you watch, she's going to animate naturally. Sorry.
Here is today's lesson plan on the immune system. Embarking on a journey akin to the imaginative expedition of the 1966 Isaac Asimov's fantastic voyage.
Right, so those animations again are taking some rule-based and generative AI components to give you that movement at that point in time automatically. But if I don't like it, I can animate on top of that at any point within this content. I can go to any trigger word and have it animate there. And this is the list of animations that I can add to it. I can preview the animation before adding it. This is, let's see which one is a good one to pick here. She can wave at the board. Certainly, we don't want it to do that unless we intended to do that, right? So we have a list of animations that can convey meaning to the audience and manually override that. So you place it on the timeline and you go ahead and publish it. Obviously, I'm not going to do that because then I would modify it. But that's essentially the way to curate the interaction for this particular PowerPoint. All of this gets published as an output, which is called the IVO. And let me see if this is the correct one. So this is the lesson plan. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and run that.
Here is today's lesson plan on the immune system. Embarking on a journey akin to the imaginative expedition of the 1966 Isaac Asimov's fantastic voyage, let us delve.
I can pause her, and then I can ask questions. Certainly, the character can get changed, the voice can get changed. As you noticed, when I was in edit mode, had a different character, but when I published it, I used a different character with a different voice. Closed caption, obviously. Full screen, that can be programmed in at the back end as well. And also you can go to different chapters. This one, I put a quiz in there, and I'll go ahead and go to the quiz next.
What is the primary role of the mRNA in the Moderna COVID-19 vaccine?
Anyone want to take a stab at it? All right, I'll just pick A.
Sorry, that is not correct. The primary role is to provide the basic instructions for the viral spike protein. How does the Moderna vaccine reach the immune cells?
Now, that's a really critical thing that we've programmed in there, is the ability to teach back on a quiz, right? And that really takes some thinking, guidance from the content creator side to make sure that it's not some random quiz that was generated through AI that doesn't give you that actual intended, confirmed, verified reason for the correct or the wrong answer by the expert, who's the author usually. So this interactivity layer, all of it is done in a way where in IVO Studio, in IVO Studio, you can also look at the backend analytics. You can create all sorts of content. You can layer AI, quizzes, forms, and then see your results of how people have performed based on timeline and the content that you're actually looking at. So as an educator, not only are you able to share individual lesson plans, but you can find out if your students had questions that were answered, which ones were unanswered, what was the percentage of questions answerable per session, how much of the presentation they watched, where they dropped off, what was the most repeated slide, Certainly, if you have a quiz, it will give you the quiz score here. That one we didn't finish to score it, but it can give you the score there. And also, it's a messaging system as well. So the two combinations here allow us to create interactive sessions that can be shared with our audience, both in video format and also in PowerPoint presentation format. And I know that we have some educators here. This particular one here was developed for the School of Nursing using this PowerPoint. So basically a PowerPoint on coronary vascular disease was given, reverse engineered comments through generative AI tools to give sense to what the slide says, checked by the author to say, yeah, I think this is the correct content for this particular PowerPoint, and then that was fed into the IVO studio and then turned into an interactive video with question and answer sets. The reason we turned this into an interactive video is because that's the format that they want to use, not the format that is the PowerPoint presenter. And then all of this can be shared with analytics on the back end. So, you know, if you have a question that was asked that did not get the answer, then you get a notification immediately that allows you to update that. And let me show you how that works. So maybe we just pick this lecture.
I am here on behalf of Dr. Kathleen Rosales today to present Chapter 23 on coronary.
So I'm going to pause there and ask a question. I'm going to ask a question that I know is not in there. How much does a hot dog weigh? Sorry, my fingers are frozen because kind of cold here.
I'm sorry I could not help you.
Now you can program the output so it's not that harsh. It can say, great question. I'm going to check with Dr. Rosales and she's going to get back to you because I don't have that question in there. But that question is captured through a notification immediately. And you can see it's that, you know, misspelled question here that sent a notification to my email about a viewer having a question. And I can go ahead and edit that immediately. So go add it to the system if I choose to, by just simply adding it and by hitting the add button and adding it to the system. Or I can choose to not respond to it because I'm the author and I get to decide what content can be shared and what content cannot be shared. So the human in the loop, which I mentioned earlier, is the component of our analytics, which allows you to have agency, authority, and control over the output. And it allows the viewers to ask questions that are pertinent to the topic, keeping them focused, and also gets away from this whole idea of comments, right? I mean, comments are in a way of expressing your opinion about a performance. They don't necessarily provide curiosity, a sense of introspection where you're thinking internally. It's more throwing a flower or a tomato on stage. Questions, on the other hand, allow us to sit there, be curious, be even creative. I mean, one of the things I worry about when I give a talk, and hopefully it doesn't happen today, is do you have any questions? And it's dead silent. Then I know I missed the mark on the presentation. So the ability to ask questions is a completely different way of thinking about interacting with multimedia that is no longer passive, that allows for the viewer to sit there and have thoughts about the content presented, and then maybe even ask a question that the author had never thought of, which creates even more knowledge, curiosity, and progress. So I know that's quite a bit of talking. I'm just going to pause here and hopefully create some discussions and questions about what I've shared with you this morning.
Michael, you had your hand up earlier. Did you get your question answered?
Actually, Roger, thank you. it wasn't really so much a question. It was really more one of those where your mind is just kind of trying to process all this. And it actually went back to your comment before, and I apologize, I forget the exact verbiage that you used, but you were describing addressing the right problem and the initial fallacy. And essentially what you were describing in my world, we tend to refer more to anchoring bias and confirmation. And I think one of the challenges that at least I'm facing, and maybe it could just be me, is that we're not all talking the same language. I think we're all talking about similar issues in the same space. But when I say we, I mean the broader we. I don't mean the dozen folks on our call today. But it just, and I don't know how to fix that. And I don't know if it's more on the academic versus clinical versus tech side, if it's more institution specific, if it's each individual and what, conference or lecture they happen to attend. But somehow, and I'm making the analogy to, my day job in healthcare safety, we got to get folks talking the same language and, using the same, definitions and verbiage.
Yeah. By the way, you mentioned anchoring bias. There's a huge anchoring bias in the lesson plan that I just presented to you from Dr. Yates. It talks about the COVID-19 vaccine traveling through the bloodstream. Well, COVID-19 doesn't travel through bloodstream. It goes through the lymphatics. So, but the anchoring might have happened because of the movie that was referenced as kind of setting the stage for this creative process, right? So we all have to have our eyes open. Things have to get fact checked, and then to get everyone on the same page, I stopped using the word AI altogether. And I think these days AI is kind of a dirty word. As soon as you say AI, people have this kind of notion that it's going to take over your world and job. I use the word interactivity, and the reason for that is because this is what it is. I mean, artificial intelligence was, first described in the 50s, 60s, maybe in the 40s. So it's been around for a while, and now with generative AI, it's kind of created a different mood. So to get everyone on the same language, we need tools that have guardrails, and these tools can be used for that. For instance, we use it for training. How many times have I given a lecture and I've veered off into a different version of that lecture, right? Or how many times a resident had asked me a question on rounds and I've given an answer. I might have been wrong. I mean, I can't tell you. I'm thinking back to the days where we're doing 6 a.m. rounds, and I'm blurting out stuff and they're all listening. Who knows if I'm right? So to bring the noise level down, to improve the consistency, we need systems that provide guardrails. And to your point, yes, absolutely. Bringing everyone to the same language is critical, and getting them to focus on consistent content that's verified by the author. And everyone on this call is an expert, right? I mean, you could get an output from ChatGPT as an expert, go, that's not right. That's close, but it's not right. Putting your sense on it, then creating a layer that allows you to output that. So 100%, yeah, no, I agree with you. Someone asked about, I think it's in the chat, about how much time and money. So the lesson plan, I've actually made one last night for my son on the 6 kingdoms of biology, because the lesson plan he got from his school was just insanely confusing. Heterotrophic, autoheterotrophic. I mean, I was getting confused. So I made a lesson plan for him, which is interactive. It allows him to watch a video and he can ask questions about the video. What is bacteria? It's eukaryotic, prokaryotic, on and on. It took me 30 minutes on a video. So to make these lesson plans, I think if you have existing videos, it's very, very readily done. And it is less than what you spend on a cup of coffee per month, for sure. And you're the owner of the content, and you can distribute it through any channel that you like. Since it's web enabled, you don't necessarily have to download anything. As far as for subject area, so as far as educating, really, this is a tool to get your content in front of people. So one way of doing that is you have a PowerPoint, you can convert it. Another way is, if you're giving a lecture, right, like this presentation here today can be made into an educational interactive lecture. So if you're going up there doing that lecture, it's really important to actually record it, whether it's on virtual or real classroom. Then you can convert that into an interactive lecture and use a flipped classroom model where you tell your students, go study this, and tomorrow we're going to have a discussion. And that discussion is going to be more fruitful because you've already hit a lot of their knowledge base points, and they've asked some questions to create some curiosity, and they can ask questions that weren't necessarily discussed and have a deeper dive into that particular subject. As a lecturer, one of the things that I struggled with when I was talking to medical students, interns, residents, fellows, and even faculty was have a lecture that was engaging and informative across all components. So how do I give a lecture on carpal tunnel that hits the medical students' knowledge base, but also gets an advanced practitioner's questions or curiosity ignited as well. So that ability can be achieved by having a lesson plan that has a knowledge base behind it that is wide-ranging enough and it's contextually relevant enough that allows the user to ask questions to get them up to speed on the content. And then when they have the in-person meeting, then it's a lot easier. Yes.
Sorry. Go ahead, Robert. I was gonna just ask about that in that same context with the catalog. So if you were drawing from an existing program from your catalog, can you then extract it and add your own edits as an instructor? Okay.
Yes. So this is, by the way, one of the things that is right now has not been figured out by anyone with generative AI is the ability to edit outputs, right? I mean, those images that I showed you, a lot of them were DALL-E generated, but you get what you get, right? So the ability to edit is really critical. And since this is cloud-based, that output doesn't change. For instance, you give a lecture, you edit it on the back end, what you're giving, that link or QR code or shared URL still remains the same.
Okay.
So you can do version control in the background without actually having to change anything in the front end.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. The other thing that I didn't show you is that it can be a navigation tool. There's some navigation tools in there that, allow you to ask a question and it branches off to a different point in the conversation. For instance, it can present to you, hit this link and it will take you to a particular link, or click on the screen and then you can have a certain interaction there based on how you decide the viewer to proceed forward with this. And
Robert,
yeah.
Are you trying to get in, Robert? Robert, you're waving.
Well, I was, for a neophyte like myself, how long would it take to be trained to do that sort of editing and putting a talk together?
Excellent questions.
Or should I get an expert IT guy to work with, like David?
No, that's an excellent question. So for the QVO, it's very intuitive, the video-based product. For the IVO, a little bit of training is needed. Most of our users and customers will provide that support for on the IVO side, on the PowerPoint presenter. But for the QVO, it's very intuitive. I'm not a technologist. I mean, I'm not on social media, but I can make these very readily. Our VP of sales, who is not a tech, he's making his own as well. So I think the way we have designed it is, keep in mind, this is the beginning stage, by the way, right? This is the starting point. The way we've designed is to minimize the friction for content creation. Where we're going to go forward with this is to continually automate the user interface to make it even more intuitive and easier for the users to generate interactive content. So you don't need an IT guy is the bottom line. You should not be talking to an IT person at all, actually.
I just want to make a comment. I have to applaud you. This is absolutely fantastic. And, I'm not an expert, but I can tell you that in the last 2.5 years of teaching at the medical school, I find that the students do not learn the way we learned. And I'm not sure that those in academics totally appreciate that. And flipping the, you know, the way you're teaching and the way you're, recommending, I think is just absolutely fantastic. I'll say one other thing. There was a tech giant who I forget who it was, but he said that students shouldn't go into STEM anymore. They should go into critical thinking.
Mhm.
And that's exactly what you're doing here. You're asking the students to come to class prepared. They watch the video, and when they come to class, that's when you do the critical thinking and interaction with one another, learning from one another, teaching one another. That I think that is, I hope that's the future of education. I really think that's the way to go. I go to these lectures. There's a huge auditorium, and there's 10% of the seats are filled. It's we've got to start to transition to the way students are learning now, and which is actually can be a much better way of learning. And I've been trying to get Roger to think about this too, is that with AI and everything, it's not just critical thinking, it's creative thinking. So you go to the classroom prepared to really do some critical thinking and some creative thinking.
Yes. Yeah.
And not so much of this memorization stuff.
Yeah. So
Robert,
100%.
I just want to build on that. First off, this is a radical invention that will put college professors out of business. So I think it should be stopped immediately. No.
No.
What's fantastic about this is that I mean, all of us that are in the teaching profession, we have a unit that we teach or a semester that we teach in. After we've taught it for years after years after years after years, it's pretty much standardized in some respects. Okay. So, and this is what I found by integrating the videos and stuff that I've done into my work. It makes my job as an instructor so much easier because, okay, there's the technique, watch it. I don't have to talk to you all about it. And the flipped classroom is absolutely the way to go, because then they come in and you're being used for what you're there for, your expertise, your ability to facilitate learning rather than a rote lecturer. So I guess I have to get rid of my yellow lecture notes. So
Well, yeah. So
yeah,
to
I love
your
it.
point, to your point, that repetitive part of our brain we're giving that lecture, you do it for enough years, it created anxiety. I mean, I would sit there and go, I got to make sure I get everything out to this
Right.
young mind before I
Right.
leave today, because he's going to be taking your patients all night, and I better blah, blah, right?
Yeah. So now you can rewind it, you can watch it again, and then they come in and then you have the discussion and really go deeper. And that's where the beauty is in education. That's where it's really, really, really fun. So Michael's got
That
to say it. Yeah.
Yeah, glad,
But
Michael.
no,
That and the human in the loop, right?
yes,
So when
yes.
they question, oh, someone asked about this. That's a good
Let's
question.
talk about this. There's your jumping off point. There was your preparation. You get
That's
love it.
that's
Love it. Love it.
Yeah, so I love the direction of this conversation. I think one of the challenges, and I'm going to guess we've all experienced this, is you walk into either a virtual or an actual classroom full of learners who should have done the pre-work, who should have watched the video, who should have done the reading, and you start the discussion and it becomes incredibly clear that didn't happen. Actually, the most recent I won't even call it a lecture. The most recent session I facilitated a few weeks ago, I actually asked the folks ahead of time in the room, how many of you actually did the online modules? And I got deer in the headlight. Now, I will be the first to say that the online modules, not the most exciting. We can do bigger, better, faster, stronger. This type of work might change that whole playing field, but it's really hard to do that critical and creative thinking if you don't have the fundamentals. And going back to our original comment, we're not all talking the same language.
right. So we haven't implemented this, but you can have session in the IVO you can. In the QVO, we're going to implement this. You're going to have session user data. So it's not who looked at module. It's like, Johnny, I know you only watched 20 minutes last night, right? So look, I'm not saying what motivated me as a young doctor to stay up all night and be vigilant about patient care was, and I have to say this, was fear, was anxiety, right? I mean, I would come to class prepared because I was anxious, right? So we do have to create some sort of an incentive along this process. I'm not saying make your students anxious, but keep them accountable. Hey, everybody, tomorrow we're going to do a discussion. Here's the content for it. You know, those of you who haven't watched it, you know, we're going to know, right? So there has to be some structure around the whole thing to keep people accountable. But to your point, yeah, making you know, making content more engaging is a thing. What I found interacting with with systems like this is it actually, when topics that I'm not an expert in, right? I'm like, oh, let me find out about that. That's kind of interesting. So 100%, I 100% agree with you that there's got to be more work done, and this is not the full solution, but I think it's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, we can figure that one out. So yeah. Just a couple more questions there, Charity, and then so yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to add back to what Robert was saying about today's learners. We struggle with that in a training capacity. You know, we go in and we pair with clinical education to train new nurses, new nurse grads, and we're asked to teach them on communication skills. But in that same workshop, they might also be practicing their trach skills. So our session tends to get the lowest grades in the survey because a lot of it is either lecture or just they might be doing some role playing. So I can see this kind of interactive, if you pull up a video and have it be interactive in the midst of your instructor-led session, yes. I can see that appealing to these younger learners that are more used to this. And more savvy with it. And so it would be such a great solution for us in, like I said, in those clinical settings where we're going in and teaching these non-clinical or soft skills, if you would call them.
Yeah. So speaking about soft skills, this is on our roadmap. I didn't show this morning because I didn't want to show you that that's something that is not currently available for use, but since the technology is developed in with 3D chip technology, you can view it in virtual reality or augmented reality. The reason for this is that you can have a soft skill training session. You know how you start that and you're like, okay, let's role play. And there's one kid that one student that is like, yeah, you know, they want to do it, but most people are like reserved and shy. They don't even know how to pretend to role play. Well, imagine role playing in virtual reality with characters about topics that are difficult to discuss, topics that literally take a ton of gray hairs to be able to empathetically convey to the audience. That 20-some-year-old is not going to have that life experience, but they can practice saying those words. And you as the instructor can evaluate those soft skills, give immediate feedback, or you can have a language model parallel that assessment along with you. How was the sentiment of the delivery of this particular conversation with mom in VR? How was the empathy rated? So you can have a standardized way, at least a machine learning way, to give you some parameters, but then you step in with your skills and go, you know what? In this particular situation, we're talking to someone from Northern Africa, and that just doesn't fly, right? This is how you got to talk to them. So this is in our roadmap to add to the whole educational experience. And it's the hard goal that I've been really seeking. That's why one of the reasons I'm in this mission is not just to change education, but it's to change how we treat humans in healthcare. And that is something that is lost, and the pandemic certainly didn't help our cause. So
bravo. Ike, you got a hand up, and then we'll probably start to close down for the day.
Yes. Again, thank you so much for allowing me to join this group, and thank you, the Rich, to recommend me to join. Fantastic presentation. The question from a school institution perspective. how we can integrate your system into our school, because we are using like Canvas or existing kind of platform. So somehow, and also at the same time, all the content is more like from an institution's perspective, it is owned by the institution.
Yes.
And there might be some, gray area. So do you have any kind of idea or particular solution? I think definitely individual instructor just to, sign up and then use for professional way or some other way. But it comes down to the degree kind of program, how we can utilize those.
Yeah. So this is not a content creation solution or tool. This is a solution that takes content that is yours. You know, I mean, that lecture I showed you on cardiovascular disorders is from the nursing school. It's not our lecture. It's what the author wanted to present. It's your institution's content being put into the system and then shared. And since it's a web-based app, right, it's a link. That link can be put anywhere within the system that you feel fit. If you want to message that out within your LMS, we're not an LMS, right? We're not a learning management system necessarily, but can draw on those railroad tracks to deliver the content and then have the analytics in the back end. So to more precisely answer your question, I'd love to sit down with you and see how your system is operating, what the workflow is, and then come up with solutions. Sometimes some integration may be required if you're going system-wide, but at the starting point, not necessarily. You can have your instructors start using this tool today if they chose to at least initiate the process. So it's a great question. I think having that integration is key. This is the first step toward that. And having partners like you that are in the educational space, that understand it, that know the exact pain points would be a fantastic way of moving the ball forward. So we need your help. Exactly.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
We have Sharon, and then we'll start to kind of conclude here. Sharon, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. Sorry I couldn't introduce myself, but I'm Sharon Barron. I'm the manager for the regional perinatal program here at Oshai Children's. And you got me. So this is amazing. I love all of these presentations. And I think for me, I just started kind of dabbling in AI, but I also, like when you were talking about how you utilized it for education and you wanted the students to prepare, and then when you come into the classroom, you have a deeper conversation. Are you then recording those conversations and then loading that into the content to kind of give it a little more creative aspect around like how the lecture went and their interpretations?
Yeah, no, we're not doing that, but I like that idea. I think that's a fascinating way of even growing and branching out from the core content. So thank you for the suggestion, and a great way of implementing that. So you could record you can record the conversation, then add that to the interactive session, right? So when someone has, no, I think that's fantastic. And then one of the ways of doing that is to put it through some sort of generative filtered layer if you want to get you the condensed version, or just use the conversation as a complete data set on its own. It could be a lesson plan on its own, or it could be a lesson plan embedded within a lesson plan. So what you saw today, by the way, were two systems kind of embedding each other. The video that we used initially was the lesson plan by Dr. Yates. The lesson plan was then embedded within that. So if I'm watching Dr. Yates's lecture, I want to know how that lesson plan is now initiated using generative tools. It gives me the link to that. So it can get you back and forth between a couple of different ways of communicating. No, but I think that's a fantastic idea.
Well, you'll have to let me know.
Well,
Stay tuned.
I'd be curious
Sharon.
to see how it works.
Yes.
Stay tuned. Yeah.
Well, interestingly, Alidad, we've been working on a research project with the dementia population, and we have been able to obtain recordings of those conversations. So I'm sure there's a way that we could integrate what we're doing there into the school lesson plan model.
Yeah. I mean, I think there are a variety of ways of doing it. Obviously, that research project on the dementia population is the first point to analyze conversations from patients as well. So,
Yeah.
by the way, I just wanted to share this. This is out of University of Buffalo. I might have shared it with you last time, using our technology to message African American women about breast cancer screening. They showed improved readiness, reduced barriers to concerns, and self-efficacy of this digital tool. The way they designed it was they designed as a storyteller. She's a breast cancer survivor with a certain look and feel, and she tells her story. And then she also says, would you like to know about how to get screening? And I can provide you resources. So a really interesting way of activating patients to take the next step, reducing barriers to care by reducing the friction that's in the system. Number one reason people don't go to get screening, well, besides not knowing once they know, transportation, childcare, insurance, I mean, all the things that doctors aren't necessarily trained to tell you. And the social, by the time you tell the social worker, it may be maybe the patient may be gone or not know or not get the right information. So a resource-based tool is shown to show effectiveness in making a headway in something that's really critical for all of us. That costs a lot of money down the line if it's not treated, if obviously not treated early. So a variety of ways for this group. Yes, please get creative. Love to hear more suggestions on how these creative tools can be used. That is really going to help push the ball forward for everybody.
I love the 100% on the mobile devices, because when we designed the Open Sesame videos, they were designed to work on mobile. That's just, and you can be like in a line to get coffee, and you're watching this. So yeah, a couple other questions, and then Alida, I'd like to talk with you and Armin and Robert and David just about some further stuff. So yeah, go ahead, Robert, over to you.
Yeah, I was also wondering whether there's been any thought to collaboration amongst teaching institutes where you can share these videos with one another rather than recreating the wheel, or there may be a specific expert at one university where you could use his or her lecture and then come back with the local professor and discuss it. Has there been any thought to that?
Yeah. No, so the collaboration piece is huge. Some of that is going to be built into the system, i.e., one video can have multiple editors. That's a little bit of a tricky thing to do. It's going to take another 3 months, I think, 3 to 6 months to get that out there. But you can have multiple people editing the same content, right? Which is important. And to your point, having that expert lecture from University of Buffalo come and give a lecture at the, local nursing school is fantastic. That does take effort on the academic side. It's challenging. I mean, I was faculty at UCLA and USC, so I wound up having no friends in town, right? Because the two institutions hate each other. So for years, I tried to build a bridge between the two fellowship programs because I trained at UCLA and was co-fellowship director at USC. Very challenging. And the way that we're actually able to, and Cedars was in the middle, the way we're able to build that bridge was to actually do in-human sessions that were discussions, right? So got everybody in the room, everyone got the same lecture, right? Imagine everyone gets the same content, right, from the expert. And then you have this in-person regional meeting where people are showing up, looking, and that really built the bridges because you've been enough lectures on the academic side when someone's getting heated about someone else's results, right? Well, that's not true, right? So in human, that temperature can, be moderated much better than not. But sharing across multiple institutions is important, and also that has to be done more I think at the administrative level as well for these medical schools. We're in trouble, by the way. If we're teaching the way we're teaching, we're in trouble. We as humans are, because the doctors of the future are not going to know how to talk to us, take care of us, and all that. So
yes, absolutely.
So what are the steps then to get this into, say, the University of Buffalo? What would be the next step?
The next step would be, I guess, talk to Armin, and he can tell you how to do it. It's available. You just have to sign up. The video-based product, you can sign up today. It's low as $20 a month. So that's like,
Wow.
Right? And you get to make any video interactive. I think there's a time limit on how much video you can process, and you have a 7-day free trial. So you can get that going right away on your videos. For the PowerPoints, it's a little bit different depending on the amount of training and effort that you want to put in. But for video, it's so easy to do that. Like I said, I made a lesson plan for my kid under 30 minutes last night on the 6 kingdoms because he was getting confused.
Okay.
And I can send you information on that, Dr. Gatewood.
Yeah.
On the pricing and all. I mean, we have been in discussions with Lisa Jane Jacobson at UB Jacobs,
sure.
and we have one professor that's already working on both the IVO and the QVO side of things. So it's starting to take form.
Okay, well, you and I will have to get together on that because I'm really this is fantastic. Now I can't leave without. It's interesting that I just pulled this book out recently and put it on my nightstand to reread because it's
yeah.
Listen, it's pretty dense, but
yeah. I listened to it. I actually listened to it 6 times already. On long drives, that's what I like to listen to.
There you go. Yeah.
It's forwards and backwards and multiple. Yeah. But it is just a mind-blowing way of thinking about human psychology, and it gives you a lot of pause when you're thinking about your decisions. Like, I just did that. Why did I just do that? Right?
Mm.
Yeah, fantastic.
Fantastic presentation. Thank you. Really.
Oh yeah.
Ali, Dad, if I can ask a question, please. Piggybacking off Sharon's question, can the system be used in a live situation? So I'm teaching online. Can I have all of my students log in and then basically teach my lesson using your system?
So you can, I mean, I think a live presentation, you would just use the chat component to answer questions or whatnot. But the way I'd recommend it is you give your lecture, record it, make it interactive, send it to them. And for your office hours, have that live interaction where you kind of, start having those discussions. We're not replacing you. What we're doing is expanding your reach in an area, in a way that is accessible to your students. Our students that don't like to ask questions, they're afraid. I can't tell you, they're all like sitting there going, especially on Zoom. I mean, when I would do our monthly lectures on Zoom during the pandemic at the university, everyone turned off their camera. I didn't even know if the kid's like, who knows, that he's like pumping iron, right? I don't know what's going on. Then I would ask the most esoterical question that I knew no one knew the answer to. And they get the answer because they're sitting on Google just trying to please me and giving the answer, right?
Yeah.
So we lost our way. I would recommend sending that information out, seeing what the interactivity is, looking at your analytics, and then having in-person discussions and drilling down. It's like, everyone's asking about the weight of a hot dog. Let's talk about why a hot dog weighs 1.6 grams, right? Let's really find out why everyone's asking about that. Mm-hmm. So really,
before this started, I think Dan left unfortunately, but he's concerned that this was going to replace the interaction between the students and the professor. And in my mind, the way you described it is exactly the opposite. This is a way to really nail that connection, because now you're spending the whole class, that whole time, interacting with them, not just going through a PowerPoint. It's so much better. I'm really excited about it.
Robert, to that point, I mean, when I'm teaching the class, you've been through the course that I'm teaching, is that when we talk about a technique, I don't have to demonstrate it anymore. There it is on video. So you want to learn how to do pluses, potentials, concerns, watch the video. Okay, we'll do it. You want to watch it again? There's another video out there. I see this as making the in-person lecture even easier, because Here's the concept, and I don't have to teach the same concept again and again and again and again and again. It's all right there. It's all well produced. Okay, here's the concept for force connections. Watch the video, do it. Watch the video, do it. And then it's the load is off of me doing the boring stuff, okay, really able to dive into the stuff that really gets students, that gets going, and it gets me going too. So love it.
No, 100% when it comes to that component of it.
Thank you, Sharon. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, no, 100%, you know, and then you can problem solve, you can dig deeper, do collaborative projects. Like, hey, everyone watch this video. Now we're going to build the ship, right? How do we build the ship? Oh, yeah, use metal. Okay, why use metal? Right?
Yeah, because there it is. So,
yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, I think we'll end the formal aspect of this. And Armin, I'll need Robert and David, if you could stay on for just a second. I'd like to talk about our next next session. And